The blood on the shuttle floor was not red. It was blue and glowing, like someone had spilled liquid starlight across the metal. Danny Reeves had seen many strange things in his years as a medic, but dying Kovari diplomats' bleeding light was new even for him. "Get them to bed 3, he shouted at Rilla, his young apprentice. The small fox-like alien moved fast as spider fear. Her silver fur was standing on end. She could smell death coming. Point 3 Kovari lay on stretchers. Their beautiful shell-like skin had turned gray. Their many eyes were closed. Only the youngest one, barely more than a child, still moved. She grabbed Danny's arm with a weak grip. "Please," she whispered. "We cannot die. The summit. The peace." Danny looked at Administrator Goss, who stood in the doorway with his gray face even grayer than usual. "What happened to them?" Danny asked. "Shrike Venom," Goss said quietly. The words hit Danny like a punch. Shrike Venom was legendary. It was designed by assassins specifically to kill Kovari. No one had ever survived it. There was no cure. There was no treatment. There was only death, slow and certain. "How long do they have?" Rilla asked, her voice shaking. 30 hours, Goss replied. "Perhaps less." Danny checked the station's medical supplies. No antivenom. The nearest supply was 12 days away by fast ship. They had nothing that could help. "We have to try something," Rilla said. "There is nothing to try," Goss said. His voice was flat, accepting. "They will die. We will document their deaths. The war will begin. This is how it will be." But Danny was not listening. He was already at the computer, searching through old medical files. There had to be something. Some case study. Some forgotten research. Something. Rilla joined him, her small hands moving across the screens. She was young but clever. Danny had trained her well over the past year. "Here," she said suddenly. "Look at this." It was a footnote in a mining accident report from 200 years ago. A human worker had been exposed to Shrike Venom during a cave collapse. The report said he survived for 3 days before rescue arrived. The doctors who treated him had dismissed it as a documentation error. "That is impossible," Goss said, reading over their shoulders. "Shrike Venom kills within hours." "Humans are different," Danny said softly. He knew why the man had survived. Human bodies were strange by galactic standards. Earth was a harsh world, full of poisons and diseases and deadly creatures. Humans had evolved to fight everything. Their immune systems were aggressive and adaptable in ways that other species found almost magical. But surviving venom and curing venom were two very different things. "Even if this is true," Goss said, "what does it help us? You cannot transfer human immunity to Kovari." Danny did not answer. A terrible idea was forming in his mind. An idea that scared him more than anything had scared him in years. Rilla saw his expression change. "Danny, what are you thinking?" Before he could answer, alarms filled the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. Goss rushed to a communication panel. His gray face went white as he listened to the message. When he turned back, his hands were shaking. "Enemy ships," he said. "The ones who poisoned the diplomats. They are coming to finish the job. They will be here in 20 hours. 20 hours. Less time than the Kovari had left. If the diplomats were not healthy enough to evacuate by then, the enemy would kill everyone on the station. No weaknesses. No survivors." Danny looked at the dying Kovari. He looked at Rilla, whose big eyes were filled with tears she was trying to hide. He looked at his own hands, scarred from years of surgery, years of trying to save lives in impossible situations. That he had an idea. It was stupid. It was dangerous. It would probably kill him, but might work. "Rilla," he said quietly, "I need you to help me with something. Something that Goss cannot know about." The young alien looked at him. She was scared, but she trusted him. She nodded. "What we need to do?" she asked. Danny took a deep breath. "I need you to help me poison myself." Rilla's fur went flat against her body. Her ears folded back. But she did not run. She did not refuse. She simply waited for him to explain. Outside the windows, stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, enemy ships were racing closer. And in the medical bay, 3 diplomats were slowly dying while a human medic prepared to do something that no sane person would ever consider. This was the moment when Danny Reeves stopped being a simple doctor and started being something else entirely, something that the galaxy would remember for a very long time. Rilla had never seen a human cry before. She was not sure if Danny was crying now, but something in his eyes looked broken as he explained his plan. Your body will create antibodies, she repeated slowly, making sure she understood. If you survive the venom, your blood will contain the cure. That is the theory, Danny said. He was preparing the secondary medical bay, the small one that Goss rarely checked. Human immune systems are aggressive. When we encounter a poison, our bodies learn to fight it. Those fighters stay in our blood. But you said if you survive. Rilla's voice was barely a whisper. What happens if you do not survive? Danny did not answer. He continued setting up equipment. Extraction tubes, synthesis machines, emergency resuscitation gear. Everything he would need to turn his own suffering into medicine. Danny, Rilla pressed. What happens? Then everyone dies, he said simply. The diplomats. You. Goss. Everyone on this station. The enemy ships will make sure of it. Rilla felt her legs grow weak. She sat down on a small chair, her tail wrapping around her body for comfort. On her homeworld, the elders told stories about humans. Crazy stories. Stories about creatures who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Stories about beings who would burn themselves to keep strangers warm. She had thought they were just stories. Why, she asked. Why would you do this? You do not know these Kovari. They are not your people. They are not your family. Danny stopped working. He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that she did not understand. It was not fear. It was not courage. It was something deeper, something that seemed to hurt him just by existing. One of them is a child, he said. She was sent to observe the peace talks, to learn about diplomacy. She has done nothing wrong. She has hurt no one, and she's going to die in a room full of strangers, far from everyone who loves her. He paused, his hands gripping the edge of a table. I have watched children die before, he continued. In the colonial wars, in the refugee camps. I have held their hands while they slipped away, and I have told myself that there was nothing I could do. That was not my fault. I tried my best. His voice cracked slightly. But this time, there's something I can do. It might kill me. It probably will kill me. But there is a chance. A small, stupid, desperate chance. And I cannot look at that child and tell her I was too scared to take it. Rilla stared at him. In that moment, she understood something important about humans. They were not brave because they did not feel fear. They were brave because they felt fear and acted anyway. Their courage was not the absence of terror. It was the decision to move forward despite it. Goss will try to stop you, she said. Goss does not need to know until it is too late. He will be angry. He can be angry at my grave. Danny almost smiled. Or he can thank me when everyone survives. Either way, I do not care about his feelings right now. Rilla stood up. Her legs were still shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Tell me what to do. Danny looked at her for a long moment. She was so young, so small. She had come to this station to learn healing, not to watch her teacher poison himself in a desperate gamble. Are you sure? He asked. No, she admitted. But you taught me that medicine is about choices. Sometimes the right choice is the hard one. Danny nodded slowly. He handed her a data pad with instructions. When I inject the venom, my body will react violently. I will have seizures. My temperature will spike. I might stop breathing. You need to keep me alive long enough for the antibodies to form. Then you need to extract them and run them through the synthesis machine. How long will that take? Hours. Many hours. And I might not be conscious for most of it. You will have to do the synthesis alone. Rilla looked at the instructions. They were complicated. She had never done anything like this before. But Danny had trained her well. She knew the basics. She could learn the rest. I will not let you die, she said firmly. Danny placed a hand on her head between her ears. It was a gesture of trust among her people. He had learned it months ago, when she first arrived scared and homesick. I know, he said. That is why I asked you. Outside the small medical bay, the station hummed with its usual sounds. Goss was in his office, unaware of what was happening. The three Kovari diplomats were slowly dying, their glowing blood growing dimmer by the hour. and somewhere in the darkness of space, enemy ships were getting closer. The clock was ticking. Danny picked up a syringe and approached the youngest Kovari. He needed a sample of the venom from her blood. Just a small amount. Enough to kill him or save them all. Rilla watched him work, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This was really happening. There was no going back now. The venom looked almost beautiful in the syringe. It glowed faintly purple, swirling with strange patterns that seemed alive. Danny held it up to the light and watched it move. This small amount of liquid had the power to kill entire species, and he was about to put it in his blood. "Are you ready?" Rilla asked. Her voice was calm, but her ears were flat against her head. She was terrified. "No," Danny admitted. "But that does not matter." He sat down on the medical bed and attached monitoring devices to his chest, his arm, his head. The machines around him began to display his vital signs. Heart rate normal, blood pressure normal, everything functioning as it should. Not for long. "Remember what I told you," Danny said. "When my temperature goes above 42 degrees, use the cooling blankets. When my heart rate drops below 40, use the stimulant in the blue vial. If I stop breathing for more than 30 seconds, use the respirator." Rilla nodded, checking each item on her list. Blue vial, cooling blankets, respirator. She had arranged everything within arm's reach. "And the synthesis," Danny continued, "started as soon as my fever breaks. That is when the antibodies will be strongest. Do not wait. Every minute matters." "I understand." Danny looked at her, this small creature with silver fur and big worried eyes. She had come to him as a student, eager to learn medicine. Now she was about to watch her teacher suffer in ways she could not imagine. "Rilla," he said softly, "if this goes wrong, if I die, I need you to know something. You're not going to die." "If I do," he insisted, "I need you to know that teaching you has been the best part of being here. You're going to be a great healer someday, better than me." Rilla's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. "Just do not die," she said. "That is an order from your student." Danny almost laughed. Then he looked at the syringe in his hand and felt the laughter die in his throat. This was it. He pressed the needle against his arm, found a vein, took one last deep breath, and pushed. The effect was immediate. Fire. That was the only word for it. Liquid fire racing through his veins, spreading from his arm to his chest to his whole body. Danny had experienced pain before. He had been shot, stabbed, burned. But this was different. This was pain that reached inside him and grabbed his very cells. He fell back on the bed, his body rigid. His teeth clenched so hard he thought they might break. A sound came from his throat, something between a scream and a growl. "Danny!" Rilla shouted. She checked the monitors. His heart rate was spiking. 100 beats per minute. 120. 150. His temperature was climbing. 38 degrees. 39. 40. The seizures started. Danny's body shook violently, his arms and legs jerking without control. Rilla grabbed the bed rails to keep him from falling off. She was crying now, tears running down her silver fur, but her hands were steady. "Fight it," she whispered. "Your body knows how to fight. Let fight." Inside Danny's blood, something extraordinary was happening. His immune system, shaped by millions of years of evolution on one of the deadliest planets in the galaxy, was waking up. White blood cells rushed toward the venom like soldiers charging into battle. They surrounded it, studied it, learned its weaknesses, and they began to create weapons. The minutes passed like hours. Danny's fever hit 42 degrees. Rilla applied the cooling blankets, her hands shaking but precise. His heart rate dropped suddenly, dangerously low, and she injected the stimulant. It came back up. Not much, but enough. "Come on," she begged. "Come on, come on, come on." 1 hour passed. Then 2. Danny stopped screaming. He stopped moving. For a terrible moment, Rilla thought he was dead. But the monitors still showed a heartbeat, weak and irregular but present. His body was winning. The fever began to drop. 41 degrees. 40. 39. His heart rate stabilized. His breathing, which had been fast and shallow, became deeper and slower. Rilla checked his blood on the analyzer. And there they were. Antibodies. Millions of them. Strange new proteins that Danny's body had created specifically to fight the Shrike Venom. You did it, she whispered, fresh tears falling. You actually did it. But there was no time to celebrate. She needed to start the synthesis immediately. Danny had told her the process, had walked her through it step by step, but doing it alone was different. Her hands trembled as she connected tubes and adjusted settings. Halfway through, alarms screamed throughout the station. Rilla ran to the communication panel. The message made her blood run cold. The enemy ships had arrived early. They were already docking with the station. Soldiers would be inside within minutes. She looked at Danny, still unconscious on the bed. She looked at the synthesis machine, still hours away from completing the first batch of anti-venom. She looked at her own small hands, built for healing, not fighting. There was no one coming to help. She was alone, and death was at the door. Administrator Goss found them 20 minutes after the alarm started. He stood in the doorway of the secondary medical bay, his gray face twisted with anger and fear. "What have you done?" he demanded. Rilla did not stop working. Her hands moved across the synthesis machine, adjusting levels, checking outputs. She could not afford to look away. "He poisoned himself," she said, "to make the cure." Goss stared at Danny's unconscious body on the bed. The human looked terrible. His skin was pale and covered in sweat. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. He looked more dead than alive. "This is madness," Goss said. "This is suicide. This is hope," Rilla replied. "The only hope we have." Goss opened his mouth to argue, but the station shook violently. Somewhere nearby, an airlock was being forced open. The enemy was inside. "How long until the anti-venom is ready?" Goss asked. "The first batch will be done in 2 hours. Enough for one patient." "We do not have 2 hours." Rilla finally looked at him. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steel. "Then find me 2 hours." Something changed in Goss's expression. He had worked with humans before. He knew their reputation, but he had never truly understood them until this moment. A human had voluntarily poisoned himself to save strangers. A tiny fox-like alien was refusing to abandon him. And now Goss, who had spent his whole life following rules and avoiding risk, was being asked to fight. "I will do what I can," he said quietly. He left to organize the station's small security team. They were not soldiers. They were medical staff with basic training. But they could slow the enemy down. Maybe. Hopefully. Rilla turned back to her work. The synthesis machine hummed and clicked. Danny's antibodies were being processed, purified, concentrated into something that could save lives. It was beautiful science, even in the middle of terror. Danny stirred on the bed. "Rilla," he whispered. His voice was weak, broken. She rushed to his side. "I am here. Do not move. You need to rest." "The synthesis. Is it working?" "Yes. You did it. Your body made the antibodies." Danny tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. "Good. That is good." He reached for her hand. His grip was so weak she could barely feel it. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I did not mention before." Rilla felt her stomach drop. "What?" "The venom. It did more damage than I expected. My liver, my kidneys, they are failing." "No." Rilla shook her head. "No. I checked your vitals. You are stable. I am stable because my body is using all its energy to stay alive. But it cannot last. I need more treatment than this station can provide. Then we will get you to a hospital. After the ships leave, we will." "Rilla." Danny's voice was gentle but firm. "There will not be enough time. Not for me, but there can be enough time for them." He looked toward the main medical bay, where the 3 Kovari diplomats were still dying. "You need more blood," Rilla realized. "For the other 2 batches of anti-venom. You need to give more blood." "Yes, but that will kill you faster." "Probably." Rilla felt tears burning in her eyes again. "I cannot let you do that. I cannot watch you die." Danny squeezed her hand as hard as he could, which was not very hard at all. "You are not letting me do anything," he said. "This is my choice, my body, my decision, and I am deciding to save those people, even if it costs me everything." The station shook again, closer this time. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Start the blood extraction, Danny said. Do it now while I am still conscious enough to help you. Rilla wanted to refuse. She wanted to scream, to cry, to beg him to stop. But she had learned something from this human over the past year. Sometimes the right choice was the hardest one. Sometimes love meant letting someone sacrifice themselves for what they believed in. She set up the extraction equipment. This is going to hurt, she warned. Everything hurts, Danny replied. A little more will not matter. The machine began to draw his blood. Rich, red, full of the antibodies that could save lives. Danny watched it flow through the tubes, watched his strength, leaving his body drop by drop. Tell me a story, he said suddenly. What? A story? From your home world. Something to distract me. Rilla thought for a moment. Then she began to speak, her voice soft and steady, telling an old tale from her childhood. A story about a tiny fox who was not brave, but who learned to be brave when her friends needed her. Danny listened, his eyes half closed, as his life drained away and became medicine. The first batch of anti-venom finished processing. Rilla grabbed it and ran to the main medical bay. The youngest Kovari was barely breathing now, her glow almost completely gone. Rilla injected the anti-venom and waited. For 5 terrible minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, color began to return to the young diplomat's shell. Her breathing deepened. Her eyes opened. She looked at Rilla with confusion. What happened? She asked. A human saved you, Rilla said. Now I need you to help me save the others. The young Kovari nodded. She was still weak, but she was alive, and the battle was not over yet. 3 Krell soldiers stood in the doorway of the main medical bay. They were tall, reptilian, covered in dark green scales that shimmered under the station lights. Their weapons were raised and ready. Rilla had never seen a Krell before, but she had heard the stories. They were mercenaries, killers for hire. They felt no guilt, no mercy, no hesitation. Behind her, the young Kovari diplomat was still recovering. The other 2 diplomats were attached to machines, waiting for anti-venom that was not yet ready. And in the secondary bay, Danny lay unconscious, his life fading with every passing minute. Step aside, the lead Krell said. His voice was cold, like stones grinding together. We are here for the Kovari. Only the Kovari. You can live if you do not fight. Rilla's heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. She was small. She was weak. She had no weapons, no training, no way to stop 3 armed soldiers, but she did not move. I cannot let you hurt them, she said. The Krell tilted his head, studying her like a predator examining strange prey. You are willing to die for strangers? Yes. Why? Rilla thought about Danny, about the choice he had made, about the lessons he had taught her over the past year, about what it meant to be a healer. Because that is what good people do, she said. The Krell raised his weapon, and then Administrator Goss appeared behind the soldiers. Stop, he shouted. The Krell turned. Goss stood in the corridor, his gray hands raised in a gesture of peace. He had no weapon. He had no protection. He was just an old bureaucrat who had spent his life avoiding conflict. Let them pass, Goss said to the soldiers. Kill me instead. I am the station administrator. My death will send a message. Their deaths will not. The lead Krell considered this for a moment. Then he shook his head. Our orders are specific. The diplomats must die. You are not part of the mission. He fired. Goss fell without a sound. His gray body crumpled to the floor, blue blood spreading beneath him. His eyes stayed open, staring at nothing. Rilla screamed. But there was no time for grief. The Krell were advancing. She had seconds, maybe less. She grabbed the nearest object, a metal tray covered in surgical tools, and threw it at the lead soldier. It bounced off his scales harmlessly, but it bought her a moment. She ducked behind a medical bed, pulling equipment down to create barriers. The young Kovari diplomat rose from her bed. She was weak, barely able to stand, but something had changed in her eyes. Her species had evolved from dangerous creatures. When threatened, they could produce venom of their own. Get behind me, she said to Rilla. The Krell fired at her. The shot hit her shell and bounced off. Kovari shells were strong, designed to protect against predators far more dangerous than bullets. She charged at the nearest soldier, her barbed tail lashing out. It caught him in the arm, injecting venom that would not kill him but would cause incredible pain. He dropped his weapon, screaming. Rilla grabbed the fallen weapon. She had never held a gun before. She did not know how to aim. But she pointed it at the second soldier and pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, hitting the wall. But it was enough to make the soldier dive for cover. The third Krell aimed at Rilla. She closed her eyes, waiting for the end. The shot never came. Instead, she heard a voice. Weak, broken, but unmistakably human. Put the weapon down. Danny stood in the doorway to the secondary bay. He was holding onto the frame for support, his legs barely able to carry him. His skin was gray. His eyes were sunken. He looked like a corpse that had forgotten to stop moving. But he was standing. The Krell turned to face him. And for the first time, Rilla saw fear in their cold eyes. Deathworlder, one of them whispered. Danny took a step forward, then another. Each step looked like agony, but he did not stop. I know what you are thinking, he said. You are thinking that I am one human. Weak, dying, no threat to you. He stopped in front of the lead Krell, close enough to touch. But here is what you need to understand about humans. We do not stop. We do not quit. We do not give up. You can shoot me, and I will keep coming. You can kill me, and there will be more of us. Millions more. And we will find you. We will find everyone who sent you. And we will make them answer for this. The Krell stared at him. The anti-venom is already in their blood, Danny continued. The diplomats will live. Your mission has failed. The only question now is whether you want to die for nothing or walk away with your lives. Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the lead Krell lowered his weapon. This is not over, he said. Yes, it is, Danny replied. Now, get off my station. The soldiers retreated. Rilla heard their footsteps fading, heard airlocks opening and closing, heard ships detaching from the station. They were gone. Danny collapsed. Rilla caught him before he hit the floor, her small body straining under his weight. He was barely breathing. His heart was failing. Hold on, she begged. Help is coming. Just hold on. Danny looked at her with eyes that could barely focus. Did we win? He asked. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. We won. He smiled, and then he stopped moving. For 3 days, Danny Reeves was dead. His heart stopped 4 times. Each time, Rilla brought him back with electricity and medicine and a refusal to accept the obvious. The rescue ships arrived 6 hours after the attack, carrying real doctors with real equipment. They took one look at Danny and said it was hopeless. Rilla told them to try anyway. She stayed by his bed for every moment. She did not eat. She barely slept. The young Kovari diplomat, whose name was Senna, brought her water and food that she mostly ignored. You saved my people, Senna said on the second day. All 3 of us will survive because of what he did, because of what you helped him do. He is not dead yet, Rilla replied. Watching the machines breathe for Danny done on the 4th day, Danny opened his eyes. Rilla was asleep in the chair beside him, her small body curled into a ball, her silver fur dirty and matted from days of neglect. She woke up when she heard him whisper her name. You look terrible, he said. His voice was barely a croak. Rilla burst into tears. The doctor said it was a miracle. The venom had destroyed nearly half of Danny's liver and both of his kidneys. He would need transplants, treatments, years of recovery. But he was alive. Against all logic, against all odds, he was alive. Humans, one of the doctors muttered, shaking his head. Your species makes no sense. The peace summit happened 2 weeks later. All 3 Kovari diplomats attended, their shells gleaming with health. They told the assembled representatives what had happened. They described the human who had poisoned himself to save strangers. They spoke of the tiny fox-like alien who had defended them against armed soldiers. The war did not happen. Instead, something else happened. Something that no one expected. The story spread. It traveled from station to station, planet to planet, species to species. A human medic who turned his own body into medicine. A deathworlder who chose to suffer so that others could live. The tale grew with each telling, becoming legend. Danny did not like the attention. He was transferred to a hospital on a human colony for his recovery. and he refused most of the interview requests. The few he accepted, he used to talk about Rilla instead. I did not save anyone, he told reporters. I just provided the raw materials. She did the real work. She is the hero. Rilla was offered positions at dozens of prestigious medical facilities. She turned them all down. Instead, she requested a transfer to the same hospital where Danny was recovering. She told the administration that she still had things to learn from him. They gave her the transfer that on his first day of walking again, for months after the attack, Danny found Rilla waiting for him in the rehabilitation room. You should be at work, he said. I am at work. My job is to make sure you do not fall down. Danny laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. They walked together through the hospital corridors, Danny leaning on a cane, Rilla walking beside him with her silver fur finally clean and her eyes finally bright. I have been thinking, she said, about what you did, about why you did it. And you said it was because you could not watch another child die. But I do not think that is the whole truth. Danny was quiet for a moment. They passed a window that looked out over the human colony, with its strange green trees and blue sky. You are right, he finally said. It was not just about the Kovari child. It was about all of them. Every patient I cannot save. Every person I watched die while I stood there helpless. I carry them with me. Rilla. Every single one. He stopped walking and looked at her. When I saw the venom in that syringe, I saw a chance. A chance to take all that pain and turn it into something good. A chance to prove that the people I lost did not die for nothing. That what I learned from watching them suffer could save someone else. Rilla took his hand. Her small fingers barely wrapped around his. That is a heavy burden to carry, she said. It is, he agreed. But I do not carry it alone. Not anymore. 6 months later, Danny returned to active duty. His first patient was a Krell child with a rare blood disease. The same species that had tried to kill him and everyone he cared about, he treated her without hesitation. Senna, who had become a regular visitor, asked him how he could do it. How he could help the species that had murdered Goss, that had almost murdered all of them. Danny looked at the Krell child, small and scared and far from home, and shrugged. On Earth, we have a saying, he said. Hate the war, not the wounded. Years passed. Danny grew older. Rilla became a legendary healer in her own right. They worked together at a new medical station, a larger one, built to handle emergencies across an entire sector. And somewhere in the galaxy, in medical academies and training programs, young healers learned about the human who had turned poison into medicine. They learned about sacrifice and courage and the strange, fierce love that deathworlders carried in their dangerous hearts. The universe was still full of violence and war and suffering, but it was also full of people like Danny Reeves. And that made all the difference.